Now invite Mr. Koteshwaran, Executive Director, Bank of India. I invite Professor Krishnamurthy. The next panelist is Mr. A.P. Hota, MD and CEO, NPCI. Next in the line is Mr. Vikas Agnihotri. And I invite Mr. Patrick DeCourcy. The next, Mr. Rakesh Sinha from Microsoft. And Mr. Sridhar from Citibank e-Business. The theme of this program is going to be taken care by Mr. Kenny Lamb. Please come on the stage and take the session to the new levels. And I would request that after the session is over, a very good question answer is expected by the panel members. So please make sure that you take the benefit of this program. Thank you. Mr. Narendra, you can take over now.
Thank you, Arora. Digital technology. Now I request our friend from McKinsey to make a presentation on the digital strategy as a means to tap multi-channel behavior. He is all the way from Hong Kong has come, and some of you must have, he has also worked on this area, and I request you to give a big hand of applause for him and request him to present. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Hi all. Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to join the panel. My name is Kenny Lam. I lead the digital banking practice for McKinsey across Asia. As Mr. Chairman said, I flew all the way from Hong Kong to support this session. I hope that you will have a fruitful session. Let me start by throwing out two facts to explain why we're here. Fact number one, iPad actually took 10 months to reach 55 million customers. You know how long it took a TV to reach 55 million customers? 22 years. The reason why we're here is because the pace of technology is changing so rapidly that it's actually now affecting banking, and we need to respond to it. That's number one. Point number two I want to make before we start the presentation is that digital banking is not just about mobile banking. I think people equate the two, but it's not just about that. I think as the experienced bankers here will tell you, it's actually much broader than just about putting your services from current banking model onto mobile, right? So those are the two things I want to start with. Let's start by looking at a bit of the trends that we see. I think first of all, what you see in India is a rapidly growing customer base that are digitally enabled. You have about 300 million digital customers now already, with about 55% accessing through the mobile and tablet device. They're increasingly multi-channel, so they're not just using one particular channel to interact with you. In fact, mobile transactions increased 11 times in the last 2 years. Third is they're increasingly demanding. They're looking for many ways for banks to provide a different experience for them. And last is actually quite important, is that the decision to buy a product from a bank actually has changed. It no longer just resides in the branch, but before, when they do research, and after when they buy a product from you in the post-purchase servicing, it needs to also be digital. So the way you approach the servicing actually is the before and the after. The branch is just one of the many decision steps that you need to influence. That's the kind of key trends that we see. If you look at this page, that's what I'm saying. The bottom part is the mobile. The number is the monthly usage. You see that mobile in literally 2 years' time changed 11 times. And that's what we're seeing in this market. It's a rapidly growing market. If you ask me, there's still a lot of variation though between different banks. The bar here are the top and low performing banks, and you see basically that in terms of mobile usage, first in terms of percent of active customers in the channel, the right hand side in terms of usage per customer, it's still highly varying between banks. So while you see on average a large increase between banks, it still varies quite a lot. So I think in front of this group, I think there's a lot of opportunity simply because you have a lot of upside, right? And the customers are changing behavior rapidly. I'll skip these pages, but I think what I see is there are 3 steps that banks could take. You start with getting the basics right, which essentially is simply an upgrade of your systems, integrating of your processes, but you could do more in the second steps, which is more I see as building capabilities, changing your sales approach, reducing costs with digital technology. The real holy grail is the last step, which is essentially turning your proposition upside down and making really big changes in customer experience, leveraging digital technology. So it's not just about sales improvement, it's not just about cost reduction. It's much more around how do you use a mobile interaction to make your experience and proposition very different. And that's the last step. And that's why I think the way that we see it, the way that McKinsey sees it, is that there are really 2 strategies in digital banking. The first strategy is how do you enable your current business model with digital technology. Sales transformation, cost reduction, those are 2 main things. Optimization. The second angle is in creation of a new proposition that attacks new segments. Now, you always say about the Y generation. That's one of the segments. You could think about affluent. How do you use remote relationship managers to leapfrog competition and gain a market share that no others could gain? That's what I call the right-hand side. How do you create a new proposition? Anyways, hopefully this is a good way to set up the conversation. I think the questions that I propose the panel to discuss are the following. I think there are things related to why we think that digital consumers are different. What are the barriers that the banks see in launching a digital revolution? What kind of partnerships we think the banks would need to be entering into in order to create this? What are the capabilities banks should build? And also, what are the priorities forward? I think different banks have different approaches. Some may take the step 2 approach. Some may be a lot more transformational. So what are the priorities that banks would have? And I think Mr. Chairman would also have more questions you want to pose to the panel. And thank you for joining us today again.
Thank you, Kenny Lam. With this vast certain issues to be dealt. So I would be putting this discussion in 2 rounds. After I cover these areas, I would also like to cover some of the Indian related issues and give a complete roadmap and takeaways to all our colleagues who are here so that we would be able to take some certain action plan. Now, coming to the first question, what factors across customer behavior, technology trends, etc. are driving the growth of digital banking in India? I would be asking this to, along with that, how is the digital customer really different from a traditional consumer? What is the implication of this for banks? So now our Vikas Agnihotri, all of you know, they are also in the Google India, has been very active. So he will be covering the first question, followed by Rakesh Sinha of Microsoft. So Vikas ji.
Thank you, sir. So in terms of, is there a difference between a digital consumer as well as a offline or an online consumer? The way we look at it is it's a yes and a no situation. Let me start by saying why there is a no part of it into this. Because whether you're an online consumer or an offline consumer, you're really looking for basically a relationship with the brand, and you're looking for convenience, you're looking for transparency, and you're actually looking for the fact that you want transactions to happen smoothly, which is a form of saying convenience. So is that the basic requirement that every consumer is looking? Yes, it is. What happens on an online consumer between an offline and an online? In an online consumer, I think that's where the differentiation begins, because when we look at an online consumer today, the online consumer, the way we look at it is hyper-connected and hyper-informed. There is no going offline as far as a online consumers or the youth is concerned, because they're always online. And when they're online, what are the kind of things they're looking for? And this is a research that we'd actually done last year as well as this year. Last year it was more in terms of the banking and financial services area, and this year we did something related to the travel, on the travel side. And what we really found is that today's youth, or the consumer that we call is online, is looking for convenience and immediacy of information. And when we look at that, they are also, in fact, multi-screen users. So, life becomes more complicated. Just before we could have got a grasp on, what should be your website looking like on a desktop, fact is that mobile is picking up. And mobile is becoming more, in fact, the way we look at it at Google is that the technology should be mobile first, because today's youth is moving more on mobile. And in fact, in India, in all probability, you will have a situation where you will have more people going on to online through mobile than desktop in any case, which is also the transition that has actually already started happening. So that really brings in terms of what is the difference in people are talking about, is really they want immediacy of information, they want convenience, and they are very happy to use multi-screen devices. So their research may begin on a mobile, their transaction may end up on a desktop, and vice versa. And one of the reasons that they keep moving between them is also the fact that they would love to finish it off on a mobile as a transaction, but it is cumbersome to close a transaction on mobile. So there are some of these features that really go into taking place in terms of the customer's mind, and that's really what we say is the key difference between an offline and an online consumer. Today's online consumer, if I may take another 30, 40 seconds, is what we call has a lot more self-belief and is a lot more self-confident. And if you really look at it again, the youth that's moving on to online and the working population that's moving online, you will actually notice that one of the first things that they do when they get a job is actually to buy a smartphone. Within a year, 2 years, they will be buying a two-wheeler. Within a year, 2 years, they will buy a car. And before they are 30, they actually have purchased their first house, right? You go back a generation, and everything of that was missing. So today's youth actually is what, in a very classic banking sense, we would call it asset rich and cash poor. And that's what they're doing. They want to live their life now because they're super confident and self-confident about their ability to see the future and take life ahead. So again, because of that, convenience, immediacy, and their need for fulfilling everything in terms of having that relationship with the brand is all online.
So Rakesh ji.
Am I audible? Okay, good morning, everybody. This is a very interesting question, sir, which you have asked. Factors across the customers, and why is this driving the digital wave, so to say. One of the most important things which Vikas also has mentioned is the sheer availability of the tool. Everybody now has an access to a smartphone. And when we talk of mobility, we are not only talking about the phone. I see more and more people moving to an intermediate device, a slate, a tablet, or a pad, which they are going to use. Internet has become ubiquitous in India. When we started using internet with a modem with 56K, it was extremely painful, even though the information could have been there, to start a transaction and close it. Doing research on internet was a pain. We would still go back to printed media. So the fact that it has become ubiquitous, the fact that it has become so fast today, comparable to most of the geographies in the world, that these are the things which are really encouraging. And the ease of use and to be used at any point of time, whether you're waiting for a train, waiting for an aircraft, or sitting somewhere, waiting for the dentist to be free to look at your dental health. And the fact that it's lying in your pocket. So these are things which have really driven it. And we must also thank the people like Nokia's and Samsung's who have built devices which are so affordable in India. So like Kenny just now mentioned, it has grown 12 times in the last 2 years. So this is what has driven the entire digital wave, so to say. Now coming to what is the difference between a digital consumer and a traditional consumer. Digital consumer, I would not brand him as Gen Y or Gen X or Gen Z. he could be of, I use it and I definitely do not belong to the Gen X, probably my daughter does. But what is common between the people who use this technology is that these people do not have patience. They want everything now. They're so used to it. You click a button and something happens. And there are a huge amount of implications which it has for the bank. Banks will have to be that much more agile and nimble. They get bored very quickly. So if two banks have a wonderful website and I go and create a website which is as good as that, or the mobile experience which is as good as that, what I'm going to get is, so what? It was available there. So we have to be on the edge at every point. We have to keep updating our digital media. The place where I meet the customer, the interface between the customer and my digital delivery channel has to be updated. I have to keep my ears to the ground. I have to keep listening. I have to be very, very agile. And that has much more implications if you look at it. I have to think about my human resources. Who are the people who are going to look at it? If it is going to be an staid, middle-aged man like me, I would probably not be agile enough. If I've built a website, I would probably live with this for a couple of years. While today, I might need to update it on a monthly basis. While I'm listening to the market, I'll have to go and fish in unknown waters. I'll have to look at social media. I'll have to look at that media, do analytics based on that. I'll have to look at big data. I'll also have, at some point of time, and we are not yet there in India, is to look at crowdsourcing to innovate our products. Gone are the days when I could sit and say that there are a lot of Bank of India people. I've worked in Bank of India for 14 years, by the way. And I could say double benefit deposit, and I was sure everybody's going to like it. Gone are those days. I'll have to go to crowdsourcing and social media and figure out. I would have to allow my customers to make the product or at least modify it the way they like it. And finally, sir, I'll just take 2 more seconds. We are so used to segmenting people. So we had segments. We had rural customers, we had urban, we had people between 30 and 50. We had huge number of millions of people in a category, and we could very, very confidently predict their behavior, that they will behave like this. Gone are those days. Today, n is equal to 1. Every HNI customer over here, and I see a lot of bankers sitting here, is 1. I cannot categorize him and put him in a basket that this is the way he's going to behave. My bankers, unfortunately, are not sitting here. They would know what a painful HNI I happen to be. Thank you.
So now, both Vikas ji and Rakesh, they have sold the product now. They want this investments to be done and all. Now, my question, a lot of people here, they are thinking, then if all that is so good and all that, then what is the barrier? So what is the biggest barrier for banks in India from undertaking this? And also we are concerned about our investment, rate of return, so many issues will be, and capability, all that. So we cannot have any other person by Professor Krishnamurthy, S. Krishnamurthy, who has seen this entire process taking place in various banks, and he has been from the industry helping all the banks. So let us hear from him. What should be our, what is the issues to be taken in this correction? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Am I audible? So thanks to IBA and Bank of India and my panel chair for giving me this opportunity. Sir, you have given me a long and a tough question, so I require that much of time to actually come out with some meaningful answers. First of all, I have gone through the McKinsey report. I have gone through the fact that they are looking at 4 stages: the brick and mortar, the online adapter, the multi-channel, and finally the self-directed. It is not that in our country, especially with respect to public sector banks, everything is totally new to us. It is not that we have not moved towards the digital means. The fact that we have implemented financial inclusion obviously means that digital inclusion is a part of financial inclusion. Therefore, I think we need to look at it in the right perspective to say that the architecture that we have deployed in our banks today are architectures which are adaptive, which are flexible, which are centralized, which will be in a position to migrate seamlessly to any digital means that you would like to implement across the architecture. Of course, in the Indian scenario, it is not going to be that you will completely come out of the brick and mortar model and move towards the self-directed model. The brick and mortar will continue to remain. The self-directed model also will be a model which one needs to look at. Before trying to think in terms of adopting a particular model, the most important point that we need to keep in mind is it going to enhance the productivity per employee within the bank? Is it going to reduce the transaction cost by going in for this particular delivery channel through a digital means? Is an evaluation that needs to be done. Therefore, there has to be a comprehensive economic model taking into account what we have deployed, taking into account what needs to be deployed in future, and more importantly, taking into account the customer profile that we have within the country, which is different from what you see in advanced countries. No doubt we will move towards that. We will move towards that as time comes in. So it has to be very carefully seen from a business architecture, business goals, and transforming that into an IT architecture and IT goals, and trying to evaluate the new products which will be able to take into account more and more deployment of digital technologies within the system. The third point that I would like to look at is the fact that all these things require a certain level of investment. The fact that your basic fundamental architecture is sound, scalable, secure and robust enough requires not a huge investment as far as deploying one more methodology for the customers to access. Therefore, we need to look at it in that particular context and constantly evaluate the mechanisms that are built within the organization, within the bank as a process to ensure that more and more customers move to this new delivery channel, which is going to be more cost effective. All of you will agree with me that I can have an economic model which is fundamentally dependent on the volume and the growth. So we need to ensure that all these models are not only cost effective, they are sustainable over a period of time. When we move towards this technology, when we move towards digital means, completely having a digital transformation, it requires first for us to understand the fact that the technology is only an enabler. Therefore, you need to look at a business transformation in the first place, and how can you exploit technology to ensure that the business transformation happens. When we deploy more and more technology, like what we have done in the last 10 to 15 years, please understand that there is no backtracking. You have to live with the technology, whether you like it or not. Therefore, there is a need for us to ensure that we are able to effectively and efficiently manage these newer technologies within the organization. This requires quite a bit of education and training that we need to go through, and more importantly, the customer education that is required in order to see that more and more customers start moving towards, start migrating towards these cost-effective technologies going forward. And one more thing that's important is that the network solution architecture, which is a fundamental requirement for you to deploy technologies across corporate networks, multiple delivery channels, has to be sound and secure. For example, if you take financial inclusion as an example, you will see that in several of the geographies, the kind of technologies that are available to us is no doubt working, but then we need to ensure that it is more robust. To give you some example of where technology has played a very important role in creating an excellent business model, and the bank has thrived on that, is an example which I would like to draw from you, where Corporation Bank came out to the cash management services long back. At that time, there was no core banking. At that time, even the network infrastructure was not great. But we could deploy a solution which actually contributed significantly to their net profit at that point in time. Therefore, it is important first to look at what is the business model that you have and ensure that that particular business model is robust, scalable, and is going to be really something which your customers require, and then come out with an appropriate technology model through digital means. Thank you.
Sir, very good, very good. Give it. So, he has really given us that, the roadmap and the benefits after that. Now I would like to, our friend from Swift, Patrick G, because they're also looking at Indianization of the SWIFT, and they're already known to everybody. Whoever is in the Forex treasury, they know SWIFT. So in terms of the digitalization, the experience elsewhere, and his strategies in relation to the digitalization, I would like to hear from you, sir.
Thank you. And picking up on Professor Krishnamurthy's comments, you did mention that process improvement and process efficiency was the key. It's not about having technology to automate chaos because you just get faster chaos. It's about optimizing the processes around the back office. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in moving towards the digital bank, is to have the back offices that can support that process. But maybe just before going there, I think it's important to note that in terms of Digital 2.0, we talk a lot about consumers, about the retail side. I think the same concepts apply to the B2B side. A corporate treasurer doesn't want to download statements every day from 5 electronic banking channels when he's multi-banked. A corporate treasurer wants to also seamlessly integrate with his treasury applications. He wants to spend his time on his currency risk, on his funding, on his liquidity, and not on following up on transactions. And he's just as impatient as the consumer. He doesn't tolerate any errors in the process. So in terms of the back offices, one of the biggest challenges, I think, is that the more digital you become, the more transparent your operations are towards your end customers. Your bank becomes a glass house, and the customers can actually see through, and they can detect any problems along the way. So that's where I think there's a lot of investment and a lot of thought that needs to go into how do you actually optimize the operations and the back office and the systems so that you really have end-to-end straight-through processing, no manual intervention, so that the customer experience is actually positive, and all of this is reflected in the customer experience. And I think one of the biggest challenges there is that in the financial industry, I believe, there needs to be much more industry cooperation, because the financial industry is often a network business. When you make a payment, there's another bank involved. When you buy a mutual fund product, you have to work with the fund house, with the transfer agent. So you cannot achieve this on your own. You can innovate around the edges, but at the core, there has to be a lot of cooperation within the industry to get the standards, to get the platforms that will actually support the digitalization of the bank. So I think from my observations in India, we are starting to see more and more of that. We have the wonderful example of NPCI. We now have SWIFT and our joint venture with 7 partner banks in India that will help implement a robust foundation of standards and solid technology on which the banks and the financial industry can innovate and come with new and better customer propositions. And I think that that's really an area where there's a lot to gain in investing thoughts, some money that would benefit everybody in the end. And maybe a quick observation, I was looking at the report around which are the countries that have the highest rates of digitalization, and these are Japan, Norway, and Finland in the report. I think maybe one explanation, at least for Finland and Norway, that it's so cold that people don't want to go to the branch, so they stay at home. But another reason, I think, is these countries have a strong tradition of cooperation within the industry to deliver the platforms on which the banks can then innovate.
Thank you, Patrick. See, the study of McKinsey, the graph has been given, various country-wise. So in the Indian context, even though our adoption to the digital technology has been just taking place, compared, as he rightly said, the peak is from Japan and some Finland and Norway and such. But my friend from McKinsey mentioned that around 12 times higher adoption has been, and the trend is showing upward trend. So our Professor Krishnamurthy immediately mentioned, you don't know India's capabilities. It can overtake also Japan. So that type of speed, all your capabilities are there. So we would like to hear from Citibank, our friend Sridhar Iyer, Director E-Business, and in Indian context, as rightly mentioned, when he mentioned Corporation Bank Cash Management. Same way, the pioneer of that was Citibank. And Corporation Bank and Citibank had a partnership. So the Citibank has been an innovator. So we would like to hear from Citibank that how are banks leveraging digital in their current business model? What capabilities across sales, service, and organization banks are building to capture this opportunity? Sridhar.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for this question. This is something that's really close to my heart, something that I do for a living, so I'm quite comfortable answering this question. If you look at banks and organizations around, different banks are doing different things. Some of them are doing it really well. Some of them are in the process of doing it really well. But if you look at where they find opportunities and where they find benefits, you can focus on about 4 clear themes. The first is using digital as a distribution channel, using digital to acquire customers. And here again, it'll go, depending on the nature of the product, the role of digital changes. Just to give you an example, if you take, say, credit cards, it is a fairly low involvement product from a financial services point of view. So digital here acts as a channel that is originating. The customers come and apply online, they research online, and almost 80% of the fulfillment happens online except for a KYC collection. More and more banks are going this way. If you look at some of the percentages of digital acquisition on credit cards, it could be in the high 20s, maybe early 30s as well. As you go up the financial chain, as you go up from credit cards to a personal loan, to a mortgage, to an investment, the role of digital changes as a distribution channel. And as you go up a higher involvement product, digital becomes a source of information gathering, a source of analysis, source of research, and oftentimes a decision based on internet, based on digital research is taken offline. But the fact is that digital acts as a very, very strong customer acquisition or a distribution channel. The fact that digital can spread to areas where a physical location cannot be reached, especially for banks like us, where we have a constraint in terms of number of branches, digital offers us a fantastic vehicle to act as a distribution channel. The second way banks use this is a channel for interaction, customer service, and customer transactions. Now, this in effect leads to revenues and also to cost saves. To give you an example, if you take bill payments, we find within Citi that almost 30 to 35% of our customers pay bills online. Right? In terms of number of transactions, we find that internet is by far the most popular channel for customers to transact across channels that offer similar transaction value. Now, this gives banks and organizations an ability to engage with customers, to understand what they want, to get customer insights as well as generate revenue for the bank. So the ability to transact, the ability to interact, and the ability to serve customers through the digital channel is the second big benefit and the second path that banks have taken. The third is with the emergence of social media. My colleague Ranjit Sinha talked about crowdsourcing. But the emergence of social media, that is a fantastic opportunity for banks to understand customers, to get customer insights, to develop a customer community. Although crowdsourcing is not extremely prevalent in India, there have been beginnings made. And to quote our own example, we did a crowdsourcing to set up ATMs in different cities, where we did a poll on Facebook and asked our customers and prospects where they would like the next set of ATMs to be. So we gave them a choice of 4 places, and then we asked them where they would like the ATMs to be. And we got an overwhelming response from customers on the locations. And based on their choice and based on their request, we set up ATMs, which again was very well received. 4 to 5 years ago, you could never have thought this. You would base it on your own research, you would base it on your own intuition, your cost, and so on. But here we have now an advantage of understanding what our customers want, and very material. It's all in numbers. It's exactly what customers say. And using that insight to make our own strategies. And finally, if you look at it, almost every innovation happens in the digital area. Whether you take online payments, whether you take social media innovations, whether you take e-commerce innovations, almost every innovation is in the financial services world is happening in the digital and mobile media. So as a platform for innovation, as a platform for growing innovation and delivering benefit for both customers and for organizations, digital is by far the best channel, and banks are using it. So in summary, customer acquisition, transaction and service leading to cost saves and revenue, customer insights and customer community, and innovation. These are the 4 areas I think banks are using it.
Very good. Sridhar, I think with this experience, he has put very clearly. Clap दे सकते हैं sir? क्यों? Now, so that now it is all from the foreign bank, but that doesn't mean that the public sector banks have not done well. They have also. If you ask in terms of the e-payment mechanism and the percentage and all, average around 50, 65. Of course, that Mr. Hota will also cover. Prior to that, I would like to, Mr. Koteshwaran, ED of Bank of India, around 10 years he has been on the IT and he has a vast experience. So we would like to know whether it has to be from bank within work or it should be a partnership. So sometimes now we have been looking at partnership model. So what could be the role of partnership in this transformation, and what kind of partnership should banks think about to change the game? Now partnership means, even now there is another important, when the vendors come, they also normally have their own selling. So there, who are the vendors to be selected on a long-term transformation as a partner? That is also. So I think some area on the digital technology, what is the role of partnership? Quotation will cover.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning to everybody. If you ask me, bankers are meant for doing banking business. And in my opinion, technology is not our cup of tea. Nowadays, the technology has specialization in many areas. I'm seeing many of the colleagues who have a good technology background in the banking sector, and I'm sure there must be some people from industry as well, the service providers and other companies as well, technology providers. In my view, it is best to have a technology partner so that the business of the bank is pushed forward in a nice way. All of you must be aware, in the recent past, some 2 banks had various issues. One bank, the news didn't come in the paper, but that bank was in trouble at least for 2 to 3 days. In another bank, the news was in the paper. All because maybe there was no technology partner involved, and maybe the banks prefer to think that their people themselves could have managed it in a better way. Since I worked in Bank of Baroda, where there was a technology partner, because of which, in my opinion, we definitely did extremely well in technology area. And I would say the business increased tremendously due to the technical integrations and other procedural things from the technology side efficiently carried out by the partners. As you all know, in technology, there is something called storage. The bankers may not understand and appreciate how to allot the optimal level of LUNs to different types of storage, different types of applications or the databases. So over a period, those of you who can understand will appreciate, as the database increases, as the size increases, there will not be contiguity of the data in the system, in the storage. As a result of which, there will be a performance issue. Similarly, virtualization. This is one area where, of course, very recently, bankers are also taking a lot of initiatives, and I'm really proud to say that in my earlier bank, I created my own in-house team to create virtual servers in-house without depending on any outsiders. So in some areas, we can develop our in-house talent wherever it is possible, because mostly this virtualization, creation of virtualization of servers and other things are driven by the front end, which are already created by some application owners. But there are some specialized areas, as I said earlier. Management of database is one critical area. Nobody understands, or at least the bankers may not be able to understand and appreciate, or may be able to gather the specialization required to analyze the data, collect the stats back, and see what best or what customizations or what fine-tuning can be made in these particular areas. Supposing a query goes for a toss, supposing a query goes in for scanning the table right from top to bottom, that means something is wrong in the query the way it is raised. So these are the areas where, in my opinion, the bankers should ideally leave it to the technology partners who have specialized people in each of the verticals they have. I know there are specialized people available in the storages, in Unix, in Windows, whatnot. Every area is a specialized area, whereas in banks we feel that having known the tip of the iceberg, we feel that we know much of IT. But in my opinion, personal opinion, yes, it's better to have a technology partner so that the bankers concentrate more on doing the business, because bankers understand the business, they also understand IT. I think it's a good blend of these things from the bank side should take the banks to a greater height in the coming days. Thank you.
That means you are endorsing partner. So we have another partner here. You know, initiation of the Reserve Bank, but currently is a big partner in our payment mechanism, NPCI. And we have a very, very energetic and very active, vibrant, and I think quite a lot of has been already done. And they would like to become global also. So there I would like to hear from Hota Sahab, AP Hota Sahab, what are the bank's digital priorities going forward? How should banks think about the digital capabilities and digitally enabling current business model or building radically new digital consumer proposition?
Thank you, sir,
For
giving that questions to me. My reply is based on my experience in Reserve Bank of India for more than a decade and last 4 years in NPCI, which is the central infrastructure for payments. My single reply, one-liner reply to this question is, let the banks get the best out of what they have already done so far. All these days, you know, right from 81 when Rangarajan Committee Report 1 came, then 2 came, Saraf Committee, lot of committees, the government directed that there should be computerization, total branch automation, then core banking solution, then government really directed, Reserve Bank directed, Reserve Bank brought out a whole lot of systems, RTGS, NEFT, then came NPCI, IMPS, ECS, NEFT, whole lot of things have come. But all these days, the banks have really developed the system. And technologically speaking, banks in India are no less than the foreign banks or banks abroad. The kind of infrastructure that they have done technologically is very good. But what is lacking is getting the best out of the technology. The strategy so far has been limited to technology strategy, information security strategy, and things of this sort. But the digital strategy to get the best out of this digital infrastructure is not in place. Example, RTGS, NEFT, ECS, IMPS, whole lot of payment systems are there. The kind of utilization that we see, banks with hardly 20, 30 branches or 100 branches are getting most out of it. They have really migrated their customers from paper to electronic and getting the best out of that. They are getting the best of service. Large public sector banks, large number of large corporates, they have the accounts, but all the dirty job is done by public sector banks, and few of the revenue generating activities is taken by the private and foreign banks. Why? Because the digital strategy is missing. To migrate the banks, migrate the corporates, migrate the users from paper-based system or the kind of channels to the digital channels. Just a week back, I was at this conference, at the Eurofinance conference. The kind of questions that the corporates were asking and the kind of issues that they were raising, you know, there is so much they want to do in the digital side, and they would like to integrate their systems with the banks. Banks are not ready. Means banks are not approaching, but there are banks who are approaching. But the banks with whom they have got the credit relationship are not approaching. So a lot of work needs to be done to leverage this thing. Even now, you just see in the check clearing system, because NPCI is doing the check clearing as well, we just see the number of checks, savings bank checks are hardly there. Bulk of the checks are current account checks. Who are issuing? Corporates are issuing. Why are the corporates using when the RTGS, NEFT, IMPS, whole lot of things are there? Because the banks, their banks have not marketed the electronic payment products which they have. So the platforms are ready, RTGS, NEFT, IMPS, ECS, now the NPCI is ACH in a new platform, in the ISO standard platform, but marketing this service. So getting the best out of this existing. So this is my number one. Number two, sir. The number two is the multi-channel delivery. Everybody say that we must service through the multi-channel, and the ATM, internet, mobile, IVR, apart from branch and through the business correspondent, whole lot of channels are there. Much talked about channel is mobile. The mobile, everybody talks, even governor on the first day in the afternoon after taking over the responsibility, first statement he makes, one of the statement he makes on the payment system is the mobile channel would revolutionize. As of now, 57 banks are already mobile payment enabled. Transactions, hardly any. Because NPCI, we are the central infrastructure for mobile payment also, hardly any. So that channel that we have talked about, banks have invested heavily, but has not been marketed. The same way, in the card payment market, 380 debit cards, 20 million credit cards, 400 million cards are there, but the cards on point of sale devices, hardly less than one, in hardly 1.1 or 1.02 kind of transactions per year. The transactions have not happened. Why? Because the digital strategy of the bank is not in place. They have invested heavily. They have given the cards. So all the cost is happening on the bank, but the transactions are not happening. They are only really happily they are doing on the ATMs. So similarly, what the key theme that I have given is the lot of work has been done, but the digital strategy to take the transaction banking to the customers is missing, and that is what the banks need to focus on. Thank you, sir.
See, why then banks are investing and you are only giving business to the vendors and all, not making use of it? So we have been internally discussing, we had prior to this. So with the experience, Professor Krishnamurthy, I wanted to ask him that, sometimes each one has his own fancy or interest. So some projects get, after that somebody else, when he comes, he has his own interest and he forgets about that. So these various investments and whatever strategies, as he rightly said, are not integrating into the business proposition. So keeping in view the customer, now including digital technology. One area for all of you take over is the banks should immediately get a digital strategy approved by the board, an integrated digital strategy. Now prior to that, so the second round of discussion in line with the same to our Professor Krishnamurthy Saab, because lot of multi-channel distribution, so customer focus, customer integration, all that is there. But have you made full utilization of the available technology in the truest sense? That is a question we are going to ask our Professor Krishnamurthy Saab. Yes, sir.
So let me take you through in the next 2 or 3 minutes that's available to me from the fact that we moved from branch-based computerization to implementing network-based applications and services in the distributed architecture, and then moved from there to the core banking solution, which is a popular terminology, but the technical terminology for that is the centralized database, centralized application framework. And therefore, the platform that has been created right now is a platform which will be in a position to take up any new delivery channel that you would like to deploy across the bank and ensure that your customers are getting the benefit that they need to have. Some of my colleagues spoke to you about the fact that you need to look at information security strategy, you need to look at business continuity plan, you need to look at the disaster recovery that needs to be there, etc., etc. I would like to tell you from my experience of working with most of the banks, all these things are very much in place in most of the banks today. With the permission of Kotishwaran, I would like to say that moving the data center running about 38 applications, including core banking, from one location to another location was done by Bank of Baroda without taking a break. If that is the kind of technology deployment that can happen in the country, I'm quite sure we have the capability to look at what needs to be done. But what is most important here is to understand the fact that the customers who are using banking in India are slightly different from the customers elsewhere in the world. Hopefully, when we talk about the next gen, the gap will reduce substantially, and when that gap reduces, you will be in a position to find out much more applicability to all these digital channels coming into the system than what it is today. Thank you.
So, I would like to continuation of that. Our Vikas Agnihotri from the Google India, no, he has to give some success stories, whether India or abroad, to what you mentioned that all capabilities are there. It is very possible also. So let our audience give some success stories.
So with your permission, before I go on to success stories, just a few things. I mean, from Mr. Krishnamurthy and Mr. Hota and everybody else who's been speaking, a couple of things I totally agree. One is on online, I think, is it an enabler or is it a catalyst? I think it's a great you need to have an appreciation, because by itself it can't do anything. Be it an enabler and or be it a catalyst, and which is a fact. That is the way it should be looked at. The fact of the matter is that does it really help in terms of having the infrastructure which is already present? Yes, and I couldn't agree more when Mr. Hooda also mentioned that is there a strategic vision? And what are we doing once the infrastructure is in place? India is truly a very complex country. I mean, frankly, if you walk 200 kilometers in any, or not walk, actually drive 200 kilometers in any direction in the country, you will find that there is a different language, there is a different culture, there is a different eating habits, etc., etc. So it is certainly very complex, and therefore one needs to understand how you're going to try and achieve or bring all of that into par and financial inclusion, etc. Fact of the matter is that online today is primarily English driven. You still have high value customers, and you have more and more people coming on board, which is what we call natives to technology rather than migrants to technology. Natives are people who've grown up with technology, and the next generation is really the natives. The early adopters have already moved in. We have 170 million people who are already online in any case. The migrants are people who are, to give you a classic example, if I was in the US, I'll go and watch baseball. I'll make the right noise, but I may not understand baseball. And my child over there will actually watch cricket and make the right noise because he was born and brought up there, but he may not understand cricket. But take him to a baseball game, he understands baseball, and take me to a cricket game and I understand cricket. And that's really between, migrants and natives. I think there are more and more natives to technology that are coming on board, and that is going to make a humongous difference as we keep moving on board if we have technology in place and we make it relevant to the consumer. Again, to the top-end consumer, I think if we look at, I think Sridhar covered it, online basically covers three things, or helps in three things certainly, which is acquisition, service, and engagement with the customer. If you bring in efficiencies in that, which is make it a really efficient channel, bring in a lot more efficiencies in the manner that you will run your service centers, etc., do cloud computing, whatever you want to do, bring in more efficiencies that technology gets, you actually have more money, so to say, to really focus on the financial inclusion part, which still is not going to be, really through an online web-based thing, but mobile. Can mobile do that? Certainly mobile can. And why do I say mobile is another area why we should really look across, because that is an area where it is going to cut across the entire population. Today you have actually more people with mobile phones than, access to clean drinking water in this country, by the way. Right? We have about 860 million people who are mobile subscribers. Now, even if you really look at it in terms of the numbers that we are talking about on mobile, imagine a situation where for the first time in this country in itself, you actually have a mobile phone which is and moving towards smartphone with, the 5,000 to the 50,000 range of smartphones that you have, you actually have something which in any case has immense computing power. I mean, one of the things to say is that, it has more computing power today on your mobile phones or the smartphones than George Bush Sr. had when he ran the United States of America, right? And that's a fact. Now, if you look at it from that angle, what are you going to do with mobile? And imagine, as I said, I started by saying about as an Indian, this is the first time probably that you have an instrument that is not shared. It is personal to you. And therefore, it is becoming more and more integral to your way of living. Your earlier music systems were shared. Your earlier phones were shared. But this is, as a smartphone, your desktops are shared in the house. But your mobiles are definitely a reflection of what you are as an individual, what you do, things like what's the messages that you have, what are the apps that you do. You can actually build a whole science around understanding your consumer and segmentation by just understanding what's happening on the mobile behavior, frankly. So again, is mobile going to be an answer? As I said, yes. It is going beyond smartphones and cheaper technology because that will give you access. The other is in terms of how do you remain relevant, which is the simplicity of how you want to reach out to the customer, right? We spoke about the McKinsey. Was the McKinsey report distributed to everybody in the morning, the one which you were presenting, right? So, when we go to events of this kind and the seminars of this kind, we have some amazing consultants produce amazing reports. The McKinsey report I've read in the morning I think it's really, really good. We like to collect them because it's about 170 odd pages, right? It's nice to put on your table, but if the same report was 5 pages, you would like to read it. And that's really what it is. Our websites and banks have been designed in a manner that has humongous amount of information, but are we making it relevant to the consumer to start using it? So some of the examples, again, that's the question, I'm sorry, but some of the examples, and I'm leading to that I know of which come to mind, is if you were to look at, there are banks that have actually hired children book authors to design their website because adult learning is no different from children learning. You want to make it relevant, you want to make it quick, you want to make people understand and not get them lost in the information that you actually have. There are banks like Bank Nova, and I would request some of you guys, if you have the time, go and look at their website, the way they do things. It's amazing, everything is automated. BNP has launched a bank called Hello Bank. Within BNP in itself as a large bank, which is only mobile banking and focused as only mobile banking. Bank of America in the US has the entire mortgage piece, which is completely automated in a manner of speaking. It has an amazing website experience. When you actually go, you can pick the person who will speak your language through the website. It'll actually show you exactly where your location is, what are the price ranges, etc. You have a mobile, you have NAB, I think in Australia, where you actually take a picture of a house on your mobile. It actually gives you every information possible in terms of what's the price, what's the mortgage, etc. So, it's up to us what we do with technology. I think imagination is the only limitation. It's all there and it's all possible.
Okay, thank you, Vikas ji. So, yeah, a very good clap, very good. See, in Indian context, that is where now we were discussing, the young generation don't have the patience and they would like to be depend on anybody. In your physical brick and mortar, the banking has to be, and the number of young generation coming in India has been larger. So in terms of that, as the examples given, as well as now, it is accepted that we have to necessarily go for digital technology. Now, from the point of this contest, and I would like to hear from Rakesh ji, how are the investments required, or what type of return is likely to come, how he feels from the Indian contest, we will make a case for that.
Thank you, sir. And this is a tough question. And how much investment do I make? I wish I could tell him X $1 million and be done with. But what we are talking about here is much deeper than the investments to be made per se for that application, which is a digital application. Like Professor said a little earlier, that what goes behind it is much more important, and that is where your investment is going to be. I can very well make a website or a mobile application through which you can open an account and which kicks off a workflow in the background. And before you have just moved from the website, it could also confirm that your account has been opened. And this is where you need to either upload your KYC document, or this is where somebody will come and collect it from you and the work gets done. But when we are talking about investments and we are talking about digital strategy, there is a huge amount of work which gets done behind. Professor talked about core banking system and the entire application. So since most of us are bankers over here, we would know that no bank has less than 3-digit number of systems running within their own ecosystem. And when a customer comes for a digital resolution of whatever issue he has, either he wants to start a transaction or he wants to look at a combined statement or whatever he wants, or even if he calls the call center person should get the entire picture of that person's relationship with the bank. So the first thing we have to kind of strive and invest into is the entire application integration layer. We are not talking about a periodic data upload from system X to system Y. We are talking about real-time application integration where I'm able to talk to each and every system wherever the customer touch point occurs. I also need some kind of an insight there. So I would need to have analytical and business intelligence systems. So sir, that is where we need to go and put our investment. On top of this, I would really need a world-class customer relationship, CRM system, so that I'm able to provide the same kind of customer delight at whatever touch point which the customer prefers to do. And the final investment, sir, which actually pains me, now that I'm not working for a bank, I'm a customer, is extremely sorry, I call a call center, and after a huge wavy line of press this number and then listening to music and then listening to the ads of the bank and literally about to put down the phone when somebody comes online, and I have explained my problem. In my housing loan, you people have taken one more installment on the month XYZ. And now that I've closed it, I need that back. Just before I'm about to finish my whole story, the line gets disconnected. How many times it has happened with people over here? I can see huge resonating over there. And then I call back again, I'll get a next person naturally. There is a round robin over there. And I have to go and explain. If we could sort this out, that after I have disconnected, every person has got his mobile registered with the banking. The moment I use that mobile and make a call, can there be a continuity in my discussion? So many times, and sir, we are not only talking about enterprise integration of the back-end systems, we are also talking about integration of my front-end customer touchpoints. I have started to fill up a form and now I get lost. Somebody is asking me a question which I'm not sure about. And since we have been talking about Generation X, they would definitely have. Those guys really do not know what is the difference between a PAN number and the pan which we eat in India. So he really wants to know, what is it? Is he able to directly call from that website? Some of the banks have built it. So I have a remote advisor sitting somewhere, and I get stuck. The moment I call that person, the same screen is shown to him, and he's able to guide you through. Look at the advantages. There have been occasions where I wanted to open an account, usually a fixed deposit. I saw a lot of money lying there. Can I put it there? And because I could not go through the transactions, I actually left it. And after a little while, somebody else approached me, and you actually lost that particular business. So if I'm able to continue it, if I'm going to provide, and like Vikas said, that there are so many screens which people are looking at. They're looking at their mobile phones, they're looking at the slates and tablets and pads, they're looking at the desktop, and some of them are also walking into the branch. And everywhere, if I have to learn it, I'm going to lose interest into it. So uniform customer delight is where we need to invest, sir. I cannot tell you in number of dollars, but if I meet you separately outside this room, I'll definitely give you a quote.
So, yes, give a big hand. So, now in this, that is correctly as mentioned, and he mentioned some of the call center also. So, there are two, recently, Bank of India has entered into an agreement for a very modern call center, not knowing the terms, of course. So the one is that, similarly on terms of the cloud computing, all the people are now talking, but I think we are not fully aware. So we are asking Mr. Koteshwaran on these two, whether all this can be outsourced model.
Thank you. I'm a strong votary of cloud computing for the simple reason that it's going to reduce the total investments in the way of infrastructure, be it servers, be it network, whatever it is. But then when it comes to banking industry, in my opinion, I don't think the rules of the game are very clearly defined. The laws prevailing are not really very clear. What happens if something happens to the service provider? What happens to the data which is going to reside in the service provider's office, over which we will not have control? The admins, whoever is maintaining, is going to have full control over it. What's going to happen to the secrecy of the data? All those things are really tricky questions. So unless and until there is some rule, law, which comes into the country governing these areas, fixing specific responsibilities on the service providers and the liabilities as well, I don't think the time is not ripe for India to go into this particular sector. But there is one area which is really very attractive, and some of the banks have really gone into this using cloud, that is mail services, because the entire data is encrypted. Nobody can see those data. So that is one area where definitely there is a chance. So one is there should be some clear laws governing this area, plus enough of security features built into the system by of encryption of the data so that even the service providers level cannot have access to that or meddle around or do anything with that data. I think only if that comes, the time will be right for us to move to cloud, at least for the banking industry, in my opinion.
Very good. So, yeah, I will, yeah, but very short. Okay.
So friends, cloud is the future. What we are talking about, how soon or how long we will take to be on the cloud. So that's a fact. Bankers are bankers. They are excellent in running their business.
तो राकेश जी दूसरा क्या बात है मालूम है अभी सभी एल्डर्स सीनियर सभी रिटायर होने वाले हैं सभी यंगस्टर्स आने वाले हैं एज एग्जीक्यूटिव्स इन द बैंक आल्सो
राइट
सो दे विल बी वेरी मच फेवरेबल फॉर योर क्लाउड so you have a good opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. That's what I am hoping for. But coming seriously, why cloud is going to be there? It is going to be ubiquitous. And I completely agree with Koti sir over here that there are concerns about data sovereignty, data secrecy, and the rules and the regulations which we have in India. So we should quickly look at the areas in which we do not have that kind of limitations. For example, e-learning. Like sir said just now, most of these oldies will not be there tomorrow, and they are going to be young guys. And all the knowledge exists in people like us. Yes. There is going to be a huge gap, and you can't document this knowledge. So can we have an e-learning system which is on the cloud? If I were to ask you, how many of you have been trained for more than a week in a year? Nobody. 1 day per year, if you have worked for 20 years, have you been trained for 20 days in your bank? I don't see any hand. This is a reality. Having worked for decades in a bank, I know that. Can I have that on cloud? There's no secrecy involved over there. Can I have my HRMS system over there? Can I make the public part of my website? There are two sides of your website. Once you log into the secure site, don't keep it on cloud, but the public site where you're going to put huge number of documents. What is the biggest challenge you have when you search, when you want to search quickly, which is what is my home loan? What are the conditions? What are the documents I need to give? What is the rate of interest? Let's put that, sir.
So, there only I am coming. See, Koteshwaran mentioned the rule. So, the Reserve Bank of India also in their various things, they are all talking about national and international standards. There is for any payment architecture or any particular thing, there should be a national. So, first the national and international standards are to be set, then the bank should be enabled to go for that. So in isolation, if you go, it will have a difficulty. So from the safety, security in Indian context, another thing is, today you must have heard recently on point of sale, whether you have got it done or not, from the customer angle, you have a liability to pay. So because if so long as, that is where the deadline was given. So I would like to hear from our AP Hota Saab, from his angle, cloud computing and on these issues, what type of gadgets and what type of safety standards should be there. On this point, our Patrick also will give, because they are in Swift and you know that they are very, very pakka. So these two quickly,
Yes,
because we have to give time for others.
Yes, sir. First, I've got two views, and apparently two views are contradictory. Let me explain. First view is, thanks to the IT security industry, one industry has already come, and Reserve Bank guidelines every now and then, banks are already sensitized about the security. And few incidents which have come last year, year before last, in ATM fraud, they are quite sufficiently sensitized, and a lot of work is being done. That is a good thing that is happening. Second thing, apparently contradictory is, there are a few products, banks have become so much scared about this thing, and they have made the system so secure that it is inconvenient. Take for instance, mobile banking. One of the big reasons for mobile banking not taking off is access security. It has become almost like Fortress, downloading the package and making use it. Even the engineering students also cannot do that. It has become so difficult. So it has something needs to be done. So these are two contradictory viewpoints, but a lot of work is being done. That is my brief submission about that.
Yeah, it is a very vast question and not an easy one. So at Swift, we move several $1 trillion a day of payment transactions. And it is true that the issues of cyber threat and data privacy are increasing. The scrutiny of our overseers over our systems is increasing tremendously. And I don't think it's a technology issue in the end. Yes, there is a piece that is technology. You need to have the systems, the firewalls, etc. A big piece is about rules and processes and responsibility. For example, what we do at Swift is we do take responsibility for the integrity, for the protection of the data, for the delivery of the data with liability. And that is not easy to do. So it's about the audits, the third-party reviews, the overseers in terms of rules and procedures. And there's another element which is even more important, I think, and that we can all work on, is around the culture of the enterprise. At Swift, we have a concept that's called failure not an option. It doesn't mean that you cannot fail, but it's a culture of transparency. When you have a problem, you recognize it, you learn from it, and you improve constantly. And that needs to happen in terms of security.
Thank you, Patrick. Now, so we are in the process of arranging building capabilities for a customer-centric organization. So we have to hear from Citibank, Mr. Iyer, what type of roadmap you would like to give in terms of the current requirement and future requirements.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this question. In many ways, it's a good question to ask a business guy what sort of technology architecture you require, because that's the way it should be, given that businesses are closer to customers than technology would. A few things quickly come to mind. Given the paucity of time, I will briefly focus on these points and go forward. The first thing is, Mr. Kenny Lam alluded to in his presentation. He talked about flexibility. So scale and flexibility are two key things for organizations to look at before they decide or before they move on to a new platform. This 10% more than current capacity, 20% more than current capacity, these are 18th century parameters. We shouldn't be looking at this. Given that the growth of internet and mobile is going to just go through the roof, estimating scale appropriately and having enough cushion that we can rely on systems that will take care of the future is extremely key. Having said that, flexibility as well. For example, we have this multi-tiered approach to technology. The back-end, middleware, front-end. Every time there is a change, the whole piece changes. Now, this is not going to work for systems of the future. As little change as possible to the first two layers, with the last layer being constant, the core layer being constant with only changes in the first layer, that is the way systems will get to be built. And these systems have to be flexible enough to adapt to different operating systems. Just to give you an example, I was trying to log in, web check-in to a particular airline. I wouldn't name the airline. I just found out that I could do that very, very easily in the office, and my assistant used to do that very easily. And when I tried doing it at home, I couldn't. So I was trying to suspect my internet prowess, to think, oh, looks like my assistant knows a lot more about checking in than I do. Except that it didn't allow me to do it at all. 5, 6 times I tried, and it didn't allow. And then I went back into Google and checked, saying, what is the problem with this? And they said that, look, this works only on Internet Explorer, doesn't work on Chrome. So things like this are stuff that would not be accepted in the future, in systems of the future. It has to be scalable, it has to be flexible. Second, as we alluded to again in the beginning of this panel, we talked about Generation Y being extremely eager for quick responses. Things have to be instant. I need a credit card not in a matter of days, not in a matter of weeks. I need a credit card in a few minutes. So systems have to be designed to deliver that, both in terms of sensitivity to operating functions as well as sensitivity to fulfillment. So the system has to be available 24/7. It has to have responses which are in milliseconds, and the product has to be delivered to customers immediately in a matter of minutes, not in a matter of days and weeks. The third piece that system designers and organizations should keep in mind is it is an integrated channel, right? As a customer, if I call up a call center, I would expect that the internet would have a record of that. So if as a customer, my data is already available for a credit card, I would expect that the bank sort of recognizes me when I apply for a banking account. It is absolutely absurd and frustrating and annoying for customers to say, look, Sridhar Iyer, you're a credit card holder. Now, but banking account, again, fill in your name and date of birth and address and so on. So these sort of things will not work. Already bankers and organizations are changing that, but the ability to recognize customers multi-channel and offer them systems that are sort of tailored to that effect. And finally, and this is very applicable to banks like us, which are global in nature. I mean, thinking global, acting local, you can't have a more pithy epithet to technology development than that. Having core platforms that are go-to-common, but the ability for local countries to modify it to suit local requirements, that is the way banks will leverage economies of scale. And that is the way technology builders will have to build platforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sridhar. So now we have around 10, 11 minutes. Of course, in the course of your questions, our others know they will give you one strategy for takeaway. Now I can have, so I would like to ask your questions now because there is time. Otherwise they would have given you tips, but you would have already taken note. Now integration of strategy, that is also what they talk. So in that, yes sir. What is the question?
Sir, this is Dhananjay Bapar from NIBM
Very
Pune.
quick, question
Yes,
should be specific.
Yes, sir. Sir, since the vision document of Reserve Bank of India highlighted the less cash society, I mean our recognition of or moving towards a less cash society, and here at NIBM we are also doing a research on cost of cash. So are we, I need a guidance from the panelists, are we recognizing the cost of cash from the bank side? When I call bank side, maybe from the currency chest, cash which is at the ATM and the cash at the branch. So I really look forward to the guidance from the panelists.
The cost of cash in currency management is available in RBI website, some 4,500 crores per year. It is only in currency movement. Then the cost involved at the banks really move around. It is really very costly. And there is one international study, a research study, that if the country moves from cash to electronic, the GDP would be close to 1% above. So there is a need for a strategy and a lot of work is going on. Bulk of the cash is in the micro payments. So the tap and go payment is the way. This lot of digitization has to take place. In fact, we are doing an experimentation at IIT Mumbai, really on tap and go. The experiment is very successful. A lot of such experiments are going on in the country. It has to be taken at national scale. That is what I would like to say.
Now SWIFT is a time-tested digital payment system.
Yeah.
Similarly, we are having standard RTGS, NEFT systems.
Yes.
So we are basically bankers. So we recruit a vendor after 2-3 years, another man comes in, another vendor is taken. It is a costly affair for the organization. Instead of that, we are bankers, let us do banking, and this vendor and this servers and other systems, let us give it to somebody like IDRBT, who will give it for all the banks Like we are making McKinsey partner for all our banks for business strategy. Similarly, let us depend on IDRBT like organizations.
No, no, IDRBT is for standards.
Yes,
I suppose, I don't know for services whether they will take up.
Yeah.
You know, it is
See,
question
there
to be
was an
taken.
attempt to do all banks together, but that failed. You are aware. So that is a leveraging individual bank strength to a combined strength.
In fact, a lot of services NPCI
And,
wanted to give, banks did not want.
Your point also we mentioned, we had a discussion. I was telling SWIFT also, you come continuously for upgradation, and we have to incur. But that is what is happening globally, that is better for that. So it is sometimes some are unavoidable. Now the third question.
Hello,
This is
sir.
from the
My question.
Yeah.
So you identified Mr. Professor Krishnamurthy identified the business needs based on which the technology should be built to sustain the technology integrated with the business requirement. So that is already there. Banks already, we have talked about so many projects, so many payment system projects. Payment system is well established in India, thanks to NPCA and Mr. Hota's ventures on that. Now, what we are looking at is where he himself raised one more question as to why the digital infrastructure, in spite of being available and banks are ready for it, why they are not able to pick it up, why banks are not participating effectively. The reason, my observation, my understanding of that is, there is lack of standardization. That is, every individual is growing as an island. Mr. Patrick talked about individual bank has the fridge, but at the end point they are growing, but then they are not able to integrate. So there is a common communication platform network that is required for integrate with the rest of the banking system. So my understanding of the whole thing, because I'm ex-RBI, and I have associated myself with all these payment system what Mr. Hota has talked about, and my point is very, very simple. Unless we build a standard platform wherein individual banks can exist and grow the way they want, however, get integrated to a common, intelligent, common platform where all the policies and cloud computing requirement, what Mr. Kotishwaran has talked about, all these can be built. Legal system can be built onto the common platform so that the commercial banks can easily join into the standard platform and grow well. So that's my observation, sir. So I want the panelists to reflect on this.
Yes, no, I agree absolutely with you. It's very important for the industry to decide what they want to compete on and what they want to cooperate on, and then actually build a solid infrastructure on which they can build their competition. I hope SWIFT India will be that. And also going back to the point that we discussed earlier on, that is a key thing about SWIFT India that we're implementing is that that company is actually governed by Indian banks. So Indian banks will decide how it evolves, how much it costs, what's the pricing like, because the needs are different here. But I think it is absolutely critical indeed that banks can focus on the innovation, on the customer, on the front end, and agree what they need in the middle to actually grow and scale.
In our country, we had the ATM network before core banking came in. At that time, it was a heterogeneous, distributed environment across the country. And because of the fact that everybody conformed to ISO 8583, we were able to transact business through that. So conformance to standards is very much required for you to ensure interoperability. Therefore, it's not only this example, any example that you take, it is one of the metrics that will drive you to success. Thank you.
And meanwhile, sir, RBI has already come out, as chairman also indicated, ISO 20022 would be the standard for all interbank payment system.
Okay. Yes, Dattaji.
This is from the PSU bank point of view, with such a huge potential for mobile penetration, such a huge population. Although we got such a big mobile thing, the penetration is really very, very low, even though the McKinsey report says 12 times, etc. But what I want to know is that we have talked about that the bank should have a digital strategy to have that, because unless we can really make the people use it, is no use. So what exactly mean by this digital strategy? Can we be a little more graphic? Because we have to have some strategy which is quite out of the box. We can't use the normal methods of education and training, because on one hand we have a fairly good product, on the other hand we have a huge customer base which is quite, if you go deep down into the country, it's quite illiterate. So we have to match the two together, and I would like to know how this can be done.
So I'll just tell you about, you're absolutely right. We have to have digital strategy.
Yes.
That is given, and that is the problem today. If I like a system, I go and build it. Then I like another one, I build it. I build an app for an iPhone, and then a Windows phone, and then a Samsung, Android. This will not do. We have to have a strategy which is very long run, so that what has been expressed earlier on, people are on the job for 3 years, especially in a PSB, and then they go away. It will immunize the system from those transfers. If I have a strategy in place, I know exactly what I want to do in the next 5 years, where I want to be. So whether I'm there or I'm not there, it will. So just, I mean, if there is one takeaway from this session, please go and build your digital strategy, get it approved, like Sir said, get it approved by the board.
Yes,
one sentence, sir. One
Yeah.
sentence, if I would like to say. Whether you have got digital strategy or not, the test is whether you have a policy that 90% of my transactions should happen on electronic platform or not. If it is not there, you don't have strategy.
Yes, please quickly.
So I have a question for Mr. Vikas Agnihotri. Now, mobile banking, like bank availability on mobile, that too on smartphone, it's the next big thing which is going to happen. And why I'm putting up question to you is Android being the majority smartphone operating system. Now with that, a lot of malicious software gets attracted to it. And being an open source operating system, software, the hardware manufacturer can tweak the operating system. So what's the strategy of Google to go ahead? Because the iPhone says that they are very secure, Microsoft says that they are very secure. So what's about Google?
I mean, it's an open source, and Android platform is certainly, and there are advantages of open source, but there are enough and more security and secure walls that are put around, and we're talking about apps that get done. But in terms of, malicious software, etc., there are enough and more things that are around. I mean, if you look at just the operating system, for example, from Google, which is Chrome, I think for the past 4 years or so, I mean, in the US, there is a hackers conference that happens, and Google actually offers $1 million to break into that. There is still now, every other OS has been booked into accepting Chrome. So I think Google really understands, appreciates some of these things. And the advantages of Android you're actually anyway seeing, because by making it open source, you're bringing down the cost, and yet you're not losing out on anything, and making sure that there is a scalability that is actually built in.
So I think now we have a limitation. So I would like to all of you that in Indian context, our cost to income ratio is very high. We are not utilized the full customer profile or benefit to us in the public sector bank at least. We have done a lot of initiation, lot of things, but as an integrated strategy, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Hotaji, so all of us will take away one issue that we will go and, as rightly mentioned Rakeshji, look for digital strategy in line with the current generation requirements and optimize all our current and futuristically to get a better return on capital and better customer delight. With this, I request all of you to give a big hand of appreciation for the entire audience.